You said you did that.
Okay, so it says that I'm on.
It says that you're on.
Yep.
Yeah. That's about. Do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Can I FaceTime you?
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna call you back in a second. Assalamualaikum, Pastor Rod. Can you show me your screen?
What? Say it again?
Can you show me your screen, please?
Okay, I can't see you, just so you know.
Yeah. Do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Can you go to the screen where it says? Oh, are you streaming it off your phone?
No, I'm screening it off of the computer. Can you see my computer or no?
No. So
I have it turned. Can you see anything?
No, it says you're paused. So, is there like a thing on the top left of your screen that's like a green thing with the time in it?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, just tap that.
Hold on. No. There it is. Something was up with the camera. Okay, so there's the computer. It says I've been on 2.5 minutes. Y'all still can't see me?
Do you know what YouTube channel is on? It's on this page. Hold on.
It says Masjid Rats. It says Salam, you're live.
Okay.
We can see so people are saying stuff. I don't know why y'all can't see me.
Okay, so that's good. So long as you're live, then we'll catch up. Okay? All right. So we'll cut off this. You can begin your talk, and then I'll check up.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullahu khair. We're always having some technical difficulties. We finally seem to have the live stream together, inshallah. Please send me messages to let me know. Please send messages to let me know if you're having any problems. For some reason, I couldn't get on, and then I was on and nobody could see me. So let's just keep each other posted, inshallah. I apologize again. We're trying to figure this out. So I know that I spent a lot of time talking the last time, and I didn't get a chance to answer a lot of questions. And so I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts that I had today, and I'll try to focus more on answering questions today and responding to comments, bidnillah. But the first thing that I wanted to say is actually in preparation for today's live stream, a story that I came across was a nurse, is a male nurse in Saudi Arabia, who when he came home, his son ran to him, and he wanted to hug. He was excited to see his father, and he couldn't hug his father. His father had to refuse the hug and tell him to stop and to stay back. Obviously, because his father was probably coming back from the hospital, had on the clothes that he had on when he was exposed to so many people with the virus. And so the father, he burst into tears. He was so emotional over just the psychological, familial toll that this virus takes, even on the people who are healthy, even the people who aren't sick, but the people who are battling the virus and trying to help people take care of themselves and recover. There is a real social and emotional, familial consequence. And I think that even if the virus doesn't touch all of our lives in some direct way, in terms of someone getting sick, um, what we can say is that it's touching our lives in some indirect way. And obviously, you can see from the example of this brother here, that it's affecting his life, and that he has to refuse the affection of his children, right? At least for the time being, until I guess he changes his clothes and he showers and all of those things. And I know for myself, coming home, I go through the whole. It feels like a scene from a movie. My wife, when I come in, I gotta wash my hands. I can't touch anything. I have to take my shoes off and put them in a special place. I have to do all of these different things. I can't put my clothes with my other clothes. I have to put them in a special place. Um, and so to me, I've had to learn to become accustomed to do it because it makes her feel comfortable. And in the event that I am bringing home some of the virus on my clothing, um, but to see how much it's affecting this man, why I hadn't taken it the way that he did, I would imagine that many of us are going through those kinds of things. I haven't seen my father in some time. I had to call him the other day. I haven't visited family in some time. I've had to call him, and some of you all that I've spoken to personally have said some of the same things. I want to visit my family, but I don't feel like I should. And I wanted to spend some time today talking about that, and even answering or addressing some questions and comments that you had. Just about the actual toll. I know I want to go home. I shared that video and the story with my wife and with my brother, and I'm going to go home to her and say, maybe I gave you a hard time a couple of times about coming home and being all over me about, you know, washing up and keeping clean and all of those things, but um, it's a wake up call to see the people that it does affect, how much it affects them. And again, that it occurred to me, while many of us probably won't get sick, almost all of us will be affected in some kind of way. And the way that we are able to relate to our families and our friends. I've had a few people call me up who haven't talked to me in a while, and even then, he said, "Well, when are we going to be able to see each other?" We don't know when we're going to be able to see each other. We don't know when we'll be able to sit down and catch up and have dinner, or have some tea, or meet at the masjid. And so a lot of things are different for us in our lives right now. And I just wanted to acknowledge that this is a true testament of Allah, not just the sickness, but Allah is also testing us in a way that we're able to maintain our bonds and maintain our sanity through the sickness. And so I just wanted to share that as some opening thoughts, and give people an opportunity. Inshallah, if you had any questions or comments or observations, to share them, inshallah. So with that, I'd be happy to respond to any questions you have or any comments that you have, and hopefully that'll be a way for me to get out some of the other thoughts and comments. Oh, okay. Okay, so um, So one of the first comments that I want to try to respond to is this comment about if Ramadan is in isolation, won't that show who has true iman? I'm taking this as a joke. It says no room for riyah. Um, I think one thing for us to understand as Muslims is the history of Taraweeh during Ramadan. We have to remember that the way that we pray Taraweeh is not necessarily the way of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam during his time, where we meet every night and we pray the whole Quran and all of that kind of stuff, and that's our goal, and our goal is to show up every night. We have to remember the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that he started Taraweeh, he actually led the people in the night prayer for a number of days, and then he didn't come out for 3 days after that. And the people gathered and they didn't find him, and then they gathered and didn't find him, and gathered and didn't find him. And when he was finally asked, why is it that you didn't come out? He said, I want to show the people that it's not far for them to come out for the Taraweeh prayer. And with that said, we know that it is completely permissible, because before we began to pray Taraweeh as one congregation together, excuse me, before we began to pray Taraweeh together, it used to be that people would gather together and in one space, but they would pray in their groups when they were waiting for the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is what some of the people would do. People would begin to break up into groups with each other. And so I want you to understand that you can still have your Ramadan, you can still have your fasting, all of your ibadat, and you can still have your Taraweeh at home. And this is even more in line with the Sunnah than what we see today. Not that it's more from the Sunnah, but it's more in line with the Sunnah than what we see today. And that we wouldn't expect that would be the case, right? That we're still practicing the Sunnah, even if we're praying our Taraweeh at home. And so I would encourage you to do that and make plans with each other. And even now to say, okay, if we're going to be praying at home, who's going to cite what? We're going to gather with our friends as best as we can, and we're going to gather with our family as best as we can. And how are we going to make the best of this situation with each other? How are we going to have iftar with each other? Even if you don't necessarily have dinner with each other, can you cook dinners for each other? Right? Where I can cook dinner for you and bring it over to your house, and you can cook dinner for me and bring it over at my house, and we can exchange it at the door, or whatever it is that we can do where we keep ourselves still safe and we still have that kinship and that bond and that camaraderie that we're used to having during the month of Ramadan with each other. We're going to probably have to do a lot of video. We're going to have to get creative, and I think that creativity is an opportunity for us to really show people how important they are to us, and to be an expression of our affection toward each other, that we're willing to make such efforts and go through such lengths to stay connected with one another. And so I guess this kind of feeds into the other question that I saw. What are some of the actions we should take in light of being trapped at home? I think that all of us have, again, I said this last time, I think that we had this talk, and I think that all of us have things that we've been saying that we wanted to do, or that we've been trying to do, that we haven't found time to do, or haven't organized ourselves to do. And so now this is the opportunity to say that to yourselves, what have I been meaning to work on? What have I been meaning to do that I haven't? And start to actually put that into your schedule, to make a specific time for yourself to do that. Not to say just that I'm going to do it, but to say, I'm home by 8 o'clock every night. I'm free, but at such and such a time. Even if it's something as simple as I'm going to start going to sleep early. I'm going to get more rest than I'm used to getting, right? Especially for those of us, I know that there are people who struggle with waking up for Fajr. Whereas if you're home now, maybe you can find other ways, right, to get more rest, if rest is the issue for you around Fajr, or any of these other things. Those of us who don't listen to or read enough Quran. I know for myself, I've been wanting to work on a lot of different projects, And honestly, I was waiting for them to tell us that we couldn't come outside. Um, and because I wanted to go home, I wanted an excuse to go home without the guilt of being home so that I can actually get work done, so I can spend time with my kids. I know that today I walked out with my kids, up and down the block just to let them get outside a little bit. Nobody was outside, alhamdulillah, for them to mess around with. And I let them ride Power Wheels up and down the block, which I haven't done in a long time, right? And they were in Canada for a while. It was freezing, and so we're enjoying the weather finally. Um, Taking in those little moments with each other. I cooked the dinner the other day, which I haven't done in a long time. Um, and so you want to try to find like small things that you can enjoy while you're home with each other. I was saying I'm going to try to go to Walmart and get little board games, right? I wanted to get Hungry Hungry Hippos for the kids. My daughter's 1.5, so she's not as good at a lot of stuff as my son who's older. And so I said, okay, but that's easy. She can just whack the hippo, and we can count how many marbles she gets, and everybody will be happy. I started drawing with them today. I started the alphabet, writing the alphabet, which, I mean, these are all things I started with Quran with my son over the past few days, which I haven't done, just his mother's been doing, and I haven't been able to be a part of that. And so you want to look for like the little things with each other and for yourself that are meaningful and enjoyable, that are great ways to spend your time, as opposed to sometimes being tempted to sit in front of the TV, um, and to challenge yourself to other things that maybe you have been trying to leave off of, um, but haven't found the time to do. Uh, Getting in shape. I know for myself, I've been exercising a lot more in the house, and making it fun for me, making it fun for my wife, making it fun for the kids. Just trying to stay busy. I think that that's the best thing that we can do, because we're going to be in the house quite a bit. I'm in the masjid now, alhamdulillah, but I really only came here because if I live streamed and I was home, the kids would be banging on the door, and I wanted to bring my son so you all can see him run around, but my wife said no. So that was into that. But I came here because I knew it was quiet. And so this is also one thing while we're locked in the house. If there is a place that you can come to where there is no one. This is the Imam's office, alhamdulillah, and we were in here last night, and he said, this is the perfect time for me to get things done in here. And I said, I was thinking the same thing. I was going to come into your office and do things in here while nobody's around. And so it's going to take us to be creative, but mindful and planful, to sit down and say, on what days am I going to do what? How can I introduce things I've been challenging myself to introduce into my life and use my time more effectively? But also, how am I going to challenge myself to get away from some of the things that are more dangerous for us, like binge watching Netflix, right? You can lose an entire day and you'll wish that you had done things with your time. And so maybe watch 5 episodes on Netflix instead of all 15, and then get busy doing other things for yourself. And the last piece of advice I'll give in addressing this comment before trying to move on to any other comments that anybody else has is to say to you, I haven't said it as explicitly, but I'm saying it explicitly now. When you try to introduce new activities and try to make your time more organized, understand that it can't be a loose collection of ideas in your head, because if you do it that way, you're never going to get any of it done. You actually literally have to sit down and say to yourself, even for my own self, you have to sit down and say to yourself, at 9 o'clock, I'm going to do this. At 11 o'clock, I'm going to do that. At 1 o'clock, I'm going to do that. At 3 o'clock, and so on and so on and so on, and organize your day along those lines. Because what happens is, if you don't, you'll wake up in the morning, you have 10 ideas of things that you want to get done. But since you have no particular plan in approaching them and no hierarchy, what's important, what's first or second or third, you'll have ideas and you'll kind of get to some of it, and it'll be like a loose collection of efforts throughout the day. But at the end of the day, when you get into bed, you'll realize, I really didn't get as much done as I thought I would have or would have been able to. And it's not necessarily always because the things that you want to do are more time consuming. It's because they're so disorganized and they're unregimented. that it affects your approach to it, right? They say if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Why? Because that busy person doesn't have time to fool around, right? So they're going to get it done and knock it out and get it out the way so they can move on to the next thing. And you have to be that organized too. And I'll say to you, try not to have 10 things open and available. I think a lot of you are students. If you're trying to write 4 papers at once and you got 4 subjects, textbooks from subjects open on your desk, you're not going to get any of it done. Or you're thinking about all 5 or 6 things you need to get done today and it seems overwhelming. I think organizing it makes it much more easy for you to approach it in a way that seems like you're biting off just enough as you can chew, and you're able to kind of knock them out, put them out of the way, and move on to the next thing. Is it selfish to go to the masjid even though it's closed? Um, can you elaborate on that a little bit? I know for myself, this masjid here is not closed. I'm at Masjid Ahl Sunnah. They're not closed per se. They're open for the 5 salawat, right? So if you want to come in for Fajr, all the way until Isha, they're meeting for the salawat. The other services of the masjid are not necessarily open, right? So it's not 100 people walking around in here all day, but the masjid is relatively active. I know that the principal of the school comes in. Um, oh, I think that the principal's here, the office the administrative assistant is here, the imam is here every so often, maybe a couple times or a couple hours throughout the day. So there's small things going on, alhamdulillah. And I know for myself, I come here to try to at least stay connected. I'm working from home for different projects we're working on for the masjid. But alhamdulillah, I don't think that it's selfish necessarily. I think that people coming, as the comment says, people are making congregation outside in the parking lot in some masajid. I think that's up to them, right? I started our last talk by saying that, we're trying not to differ and disagree with the people who are making choices either to close the masajid or to keep the masajid open. I think that we're doing as best as we can and we're using our best judgment. To say that it's selfish that you're praying in the parking lot if you're not harming anybody, I don't know that I would necessarily go that far. Again, it's our temptation as Muslims sometimes to be inclined to differ with each other when we have just a disagreement about what our opinions or prerogatives are. Um, if 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 you see people praying in a parking lot and you don't want to do that, alhamdulillah, you're free to not do that. And if you're worried about getting sick because you're praying next to someone in the jama'ah, alhamdulillah, may Allah bless you and protect you and keep you safe. You're also free not to do that, right? Like Allah knows you best. Um, and Allah knows your intention. I was saying this to Tariq after our last talk. The people who aren't going to the masajid because of the virus, at least in my opinion, aren't people that don't pray in the masjid anyway, right? These are people who love the masajid, who are connected to the community, who give a lot of their time and their effort, their money, their resources to the masjid, and they love the masjid, and they love the people inside of the masjid. They're just concerned about their health and their well-being and the well-being of their family members. Now, the people who want to come and make Jama'ah, in the parking lot, alhamdulillah, I think that serves a purpose too. There's some benefit in it, and may Allah protect them and keep them safe and keep them healthy and keep their families healthy. But they also they might be trying to show that our community is resilient. You don't know, right, what their intention is, and sometimes even asking, how come you guys come together and do it, right? When they might say, we want to show solidarity in this time, that our community is still strong, that we still care very much for the congregational prayer with each other, and it's more symbolic to us that we're going to keep doing it together. Hold on 1 second, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I have my own emergencies that I'm dealing with too. So I think I would say that I know for myself that I've, over the course of a number of weeks, I've taken this virus very, very seriously. And for myself, I don't pray. I come for Jumu'ah, but other than that, I try to stay home. Um, I'm the only person in the house who goes out. Right? I'll come for Jumu'ah, but again, I sit very, very far away from the people. And even when I'm trying to, when I line up for Salatul Jumu'ah, I try to. Today, I prayed in the corner where, it's not possible for someone to have prayed in that space already. And I just stood there and waited till the people lined up according to where I was. Alhamdulillah. I brought something to pray on, so I wasn't praying on the carpet of the masjid. When I got home, I changed all of my clothes and took all of it off, so I wasn't walking around in it. I'm trying to take my precautions as best I can. I try not to shake hands with people. I washed my hands several times. I was mindful not to touch my face. I think that we're doing the best that we can, and to understand that a lot of stuff that we do is also very psychological. Um, I see a lot of people wearing masks for one, right? And we know that the latest medical advice is if you're not sick, you shouldn't wear a mask, right? But if you go outside, all you see is people running around everywhere. Some people wearing masks. Some people, I saw someone wearing a ski mask. I saw a guy with a scarf wrapped around his face. I mean, these things are not medically effective in protecting you from becoming ill. A lot of it has more to do with us feeling emotionally comfortable than anything else, right? And so you have to understand that I think you need to do your hold on. I'm sorry. I'm trying to manage things. I'm trying to manage things too. We started late, so I wasn't expecting to still be on. Um, so yeah, so those are my thoughts around these kinds of things, right? I don't necessarily, and if you think that is selfish, I would say to talk to them to find out what their thoughts are. Can a family do a Jumu'ah prayer, or do you still need 40 people? I'm not familiar with 40 people. I don't know that you need 40 people to do Jumu'ah. I know that Jumu'ah is done in the masjid, and that's all I know, right? That this is from the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That Jumu'ah is done in the masjid. I know that for myself, I was having a conversation uh, uh, with an imam, and he was saying that one of the ai in another state, that the police came to the masjid uh, to make sure that none of the people. Oh, I don't. The police came to make sure that the people didn't have Salat al-Jumu'ah, but they were allowed to pray Zuhr, right? You're allowed to pray Zuhr, but you can't have Jumu'ah. And I think that to some degree, this relates to the Muslims having to advocate for themselves, right? If we can come together and stand together and be close with each other enough to pray, but not enough to sit with each other, even if we don't do a 20-minute, 30-minute Jumu'ah, but just to do a few minutes with each other, this is the beginning of advocating for the Muslims. I know that here um, they tried to give us some trouble today at the masjid. The police came, and from my understanding, the police were sent away. Right? The governor of the state of New Jersey has allowed for religious services. Right? And when the police officer came to say you're not allowed to have religious services, the police officer was confronted with um, the directive of the governor and was told you can't have more authority than the governor, right? And we can't honor your authority over the governor's authority. The governor of the state has given us permission to do this. And so we're going to do what we've been given permission to do. And so, as Muslims, we have to begin to advocate for ourselves to some degree. One second, I'm sorry to keep doing this. I'm sorry. So this question. Uh, there's a comment. I think that is from the Hanbali Madhab. I can't be sure of that. I did Jumu'ah the other day in a hospital for the medical staff, and there was 10 people there. Um, you know, I don't want to get into the madhab thing, but if you live in a city where there's hardly any Muslims and you open a prayer space and you do Jumu'ah for the people, and there's 5 Muslims in the city who come, does the Hanbali madhab say that the Jumu'ah is invalid for the people? I don't know, right? If someone dies from coronavirus, does he get the rank of Shaheed? I heard someone mention that in another class. I can't tell you, I can't speak on that. Again, you know, I'm not the sheikh. Alhamdulillah, I'm just Dr. Ray. I have a degree in psychology. I studied the religion a bit. Alhamdulillah. I can't tell you that. I would imagine that it depends on the circumstances of the person getting the disease and how they died and all of that kind of stuff, what they were doing. And of course, Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, know best. But what I can say is to try to protect yourselves and again consult your ai concerning some of these affairs. But at least for the Jumu'ah, I know that you cannot do Jumu'ah in the house. Jumu'ah is done in the masajid. One of the psychological effects of being in isolation for long periods of time. Um, so one of the effects of isolation for a long period of time, and it depends on if you're in there by yourself or you're in there with someone else. But to some degree, eventually the same issues start to set in. Is sometimes I wouldn't necessarily call it a depression, but feeling melancholy, right? And it's a lower level of sadness, and I think that a lot of that comes from kind of like listlessness and purposelessness. They call it cabin fever, where you start to get a little stir crazy. You want to get out of the house. You start getting bored with the things that you're doing. Um, it becomes too routine for you, and you're feeling like you're not getting enough done for yourself, or you're not feeling as motivated as you would normally be in the course of your day. You're breaking your routine. And one of the ways to try to combat this is to actually get out of the house. Um, Alhamdulillah, I know that in other countries you're not allowed out of the house hardly at all. But that's not the case here in New Jersey, right? So if you're starting to feel a bit depressed, you're starting to feel a little bit lonely, I think these are opportunities to go out and to take a walk, right? To run if you're capable of running, to walk if you're capable of walking. Um, Even if you have a porch, right? If you have a computer, maybe sit out on your porch. Again, this goes back to that idea of getting creative. Um, get out on your porch and watch a show. Get out on the porch and read a book. Get out on the porch, get some sunlight in your face. Get some of that fresh air. Because a lot of it has to do with that, right? You're in the confines of a very small space a lot of times, no matter how big your house is. You're spending a lot of time in your room, you're spending a lot of time on the couch, and you're spending a lot of time in the kitchen. So in that instance, you're going to want to try to diversify your day as best as possible, because your mood is going to start to um, turn downward after a while, depending on who you are and how emotionally resilient you are too. Right? Some of us are already kind of predisposed to feeling down, and so after a while of doing much of nothing, you start to feel even more down, right? Some of us feel like we don't have much purpose in life already. And if we're home and we're not doing anything, that's just more of a confirmation that we don't have much purpose in life. Right. And so in these instances, you want to try your best to do things that brighten up your mood. Um, Again, some of that creativity relates to projects that you've been wanting to do for a while. But that's as it relates to some of the sadness that starts to set in, right? And again, I mentioned this the last time. Talk to your friends and family. If you're feeling sad, talk about feeling sad, because 9 times out of 10, other people are feeling a way. Even if they're not feeling the way that you are, they're feeling a way. And it's good sometimes to talk it out with other people. And again, as I mentioned the last time, is to say, okay, well, how are we going to cheer each other up? How are we going to boost each other's moods or help each other deal with anxiety or our fears or whatever it is that we're going through in the moments when we're kind of feeling at our lowest or at our most vulnerable because we've been in the house for so long. Uh, the other thing is anxiety, which can start to set in. And a lot of anxiety comes from, especially with these circumstances, when you're in these cramped spaces, it feels like the walls are closing in on you sometimes, and you feel almost like you're being attacked. And but then on top of that, you're kind of in an environment where you're worried about getting sick a lot, and you're hearing a lot of bad news all the time, especially when you hear about how sick people are becoming. I learned today that it seems that our official number in the U.S. has overtaken Italy and China for their official numbers of people who have been affected by the coronavirus. And honestly, frankly, it feels like our government's not doing enough. And even though they're doing as much as they can, the problem is so great that it's almost impossible for them to be doing enough. So with that said, I mean, you can get into this kind of bleak spiral sometimes, and the anxiety can become very, very overwhelming. I would advise you all to take advantage of a lot of the mental health resources that are being made available. I can make them available to Tarek, and then he can share them with you all. But there's a lot of online counseling, telephone counseling, video counseling. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of initiatives, just like with the students being out of school and the schools have to get creative. Um, Therapists are getting creative. Insurance companies are getting creative. Everybody is trying to respond as best as they can to this issue. As I said before, like you might have a lot of fears and worries and concerns, and just because you don't know the solution to that fear or worry or concern doesn't mean that somebody's not working on it, right? And obviously, we see here from at least for myself, looking at what the mental health community is doing, they're doing a lot to make counseling available to the people that need it. And so counseling is still available, even if you don't want to go in for a session. You can still call or Skype or do a lot of different things to get some kind of counseling support, emotional support in these times. Um, I have a question here. Um, how does someone stay positive, hopeful, while things are only getting worse? One second, I'm sorry. Um, Again, I'm kind of saying the same things again, but that's because I think that they're the most, they're the simplest, right? I was listening to the general who's in charge of the Army Corps of Engineers. And the Army Corps of Engineers is the division of the Army that builds things, right? Basically, just to put it in the simplest of terms, right? And so, as we're short on a lot of hospitals and medical centers and all those kinds of things, what the Army Corps of Engineers does is they'll get in contact with the governor, and the governor will say these are the cities that we need more hospitals in. And the general said, okay, well, I just need you to identify 4 buildings, in 24 hours that we can turn into temporary hospitals, right? And he talked about college dorms. He talked about basketball arenas. He talked about a lot of different hotels, things like that. And he said, one of the first things he said in one of his press conferences was, "We have a very complicated problem. And what we can't do is try to approach this with a complicated answer." And so, even though I'm repeating myself over and over again, is because I think that I'm trying to keep the solutions very simple and easy to produce as best as you can and as best as I can, because we can't overcomplicate our efforts, right? Because we're not going to do them. If they're too difficult or there's too many steps, we're not going to do it, right? Somebody said to me the other day he got a link for a Facebook post, and he says, once I click the link, if it takes me to something that I need to do to watch whatever's in the post, I'm done, right? And I think that a lot of us are like that. And so, as it relates to staying positive and hopeful, I think that it number one is turning to Allah. Um, I know, again, I try to relate personal stories, not because I'm the best in the world. I've had my frustrated times, I've had my up times and down times, since being home. But I think that spending time with my family, spending time with my kids, watching over my son last night while he slept, watching over my daughter while she slept, and making dua for them, and thanking Allah for them, and being grateful that we're in each other's lives. Alhamdulillah, that we're still healthy, and being sweet and being kind to each other. Using this as an opportunity to have more meaningful experiences with the people in our lives. And if you don't have people in your life, which can be the case with some of us, making meaningful experiences for yourself. A lot of us sometimes avoid our own selves. And so now we have an opportunity where we can challenge ourselves to get over that and to get through that. Issa misses you all too, alhamdulillah. Um, I'm just grateful. At least I can say for myself, to sit down and to really reflect, right, to Debu, to think about what Allah has done for us and that He's given us help. So many people have passed away. I'm reading the news all the time, and the people are getting younger and younger and younger. I know that when the virus first came to the States, the thing we were talking about the most is, it's really going to be hitting older people hard, and it has been. But we're finding now people are younger and younger and younger. There's a young man, I think he's 22, and he's in a coma, right? And he didn't have any other medical issues, and so there was a school principal in New York who passed away, and there's celebrities who are getting sick who are passing away, and I know that there was a woman who was running for president, Amy Klobuchar. Her husband's really sick, from what I understand. And it just goes, and she was just running for president 2 weeks ago. And so, Allah can decree that your life is going to change in some very serious ways very quickly. And I just want to say to you all, in order to stay upbeat is to constantly be living in gratefulness and living in the moment of appreciating that Allah has blessed you with something. And Allah has blessed you with some people. And if Allah hasn't blessed you with something or some people, that He's blessed you at least with yourself. And if you even feel like you don't have yourself, Allah has blessed you with Himself, right? And that at least we have Allah to turn to with our fears and our hopes and our worries. And I just want to remind you all, Bismillah, excuse me, if you're home, this is an opportunity to try to get closer to Allah. Don't only try to get closer to your family and friends, but try to get closer to Allah so that when you emerge from this situation, that you'll have a much stronger bond and connection with Allah, and then after that with yourself, and then after that with your families and friends and loved ones, and you'll be looking forward to starting life again, right? And reinvigorating your life, and that Allah has given you an opportunity to begin another day with purpose, right? Another day to worship in all of the things that you do. It's not just worshiping through the salah, it's worshiping Allah through the things that you eat, it's worshiping Allah through the things that you see, the things that you say, and the people you surround yourself with, the things that you do throughout your day. Ironing your clothes, alhamdulillah, can be an ibadah if you're doing it so that Allah is pleased with you, right? All of the things that you can do, drinking water, because you haven't been drinking water. If you're doing it to please Allah, that's another opportunity for you to come closer to Him. And checking in on people. I know that I got a phone call from a friend last night. Alhamdulillah, I hadn't talked to him in about a year, and I love him so much. I cried the last time I didn't see him for a long time. And so when he called me, I was so happy, and we talked for a bit, and we catch up and all of those kinds of things, and we want to see each other when things get better. Inshallah, we'll all sit down as bring our families together, and just doing those kinds of things. I texted a friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a while, and I haven't heard from him. I'm making sure he's okay, and I'm letting him know that I care about him, and I'm wanting him to be well and his family to be well. It's a pretty dangerous time for so many of us, and we don't know who's infected or who's not. My wife wasn't feeling well the other day. I started to worry over her, and these kinds of things, we can't take them for granted. This is an opportunity for us to do so many more important and meaningful things in each other's lives, as opposed to just kind of getting caught up in the hysteria or, you know, shaking, rocking back and forth in the corner, worrying to ourselves, right? Because neither one of them is going to help. We want to approach this time in a way that at the end of it, we can be very, very proud of. Um, I want to stop in a second. I'll take some time, inshallah, to do maybe one more question and comment that you guys have, and then inshallah we'll stop being. I do want to thank you all again for being so patient. I told Tariq when we were doing this, I said I'm going to disappoint you. You're going to be so embarrassed how bad I am with technology. And I hope I haven't disappointed him in him being disappointed in how bad I am with technology. I'd never done Facebook Live before, and I had never done YouTube Live before. I mean, well, yeah, other technology I can do, but this kind of stuff, you know, I'm an old man. Jazakallah khairan. Okay, if there's no thoughts or comments, anybody, but okay, okay, alhamdulillah. So if there's no other thoughts or comments, inshallah, um, we'll stop here. Bidnillah. May Allah bless you and protect you all. It's a very serious thing. This virus that's going on now. It's so easily spread, and so many people weren't taking it seriously. And I hear terrible stories about um, the ways that people have been taking it for granted. I watched a video of, and I'll share this with you guys, even though I said I was going to let you go. There was a rapper who was talking about how he got um, the coronavirus, right? And he said that, oh, I was taking it seriously and I was isolating myself, and he said I was clowning people who were out and about and doing all kinds of stuff and socializing and going to clubs and all that kind of stuff. I was making fun of them, and then I turned around and got it, right? But the one thing that he said, which nobody really picked up on during the interview, is that he had done like 100 things, right? He said I was isolating myself, but I went to the barbershop. I was isolating myself, but I did all of these different things. And I say this not to say that he wasn't isolating himself, but to say that it's that easy. It's really that easy, and you cannot underestimate when Allah decrees for you that He wants you to be exposed to this virus. It's not a complicated thing, and it's not that you are going to go somewhere and somebody's going to cough on you, or you know what I mean? Any of those kinds of things. It could be something so simple as everybody's going to Costco, right? And you go to Costco and you know you touch it, you pick up a box that somebody picked up and put back, and you clean the cart, you cleaned your hands, you did all that stuff, but the box you took home, um, someone had touched it, and then you touch your eye by mistake, which can happen, right? This is why I was saying about not those masks. The masks are for the people who are sick. so that they can't cough and spread it. We get it by touching things or coming into contact with the virus and then touching our mouths or our eyes, right? So the mask is good for not putting something in your mouth, but it doesn't stop you from touching your eyes, with dirty hands and all that kind of stuff. So it's not as effective as we think it is. And obviously, wrapping a scarf around your face, you know, you might as well scuba dive with a scarf around your face if you think it's going to help. Um, and so I say this to you all to take it very seriously, but to also remember that you cannot escape this virus. That if Allah has decreed that you're going to get sick, unfortunately, you're going to get sick, and may Allah protect you and bless you and do everything that you can to protect yourself. But then, if you get sick, do everything that you can to get treatment, and that you're going to have to be your best advocate. Because I know that the hospitals, I've been reading the stories about the Muslims who are getting turned away at the hospital and are not getting treatment. They can't even get tested. I was reading from ICNYU. Khalid Latif sent out an email today just talking about, number one, alhamdulillah, may Allah reward him and all of the people from ICNYU and all of the people who are contributing. They've raised over $400,000 for families who are in financial dire situations. But then also he went down just a list of people who have passed away from being sick from the virus and people who passed away in general. There's a lot of people. Today I read about a young woman who she had to be maybe 4 years younger than me. She died. She had brain cancer. She was struggling with it for years, and there were so many people's aunts and uncles and friends who passed away from complications of the coronavirus. I mean, this is hitting us all, and we can't forget to pay attention to um, the emotional struggle that we're going to be going through and the emotional struggle that other people who are either sick or losing loved ones to the sickness are going through, and to be there for them and to check in on them and to ask them, what kind of support do you need from me? Because we don't always know what to do for people, but the simplest thing we can do is ask them, what can we do? you know Telling people that you're going to make dua for them is great, alhamdulillah, because sometimes that's all they need. But also saying to them, and if there's more than that I can do, I'm here for you. If we just need to talk for a bit, or you need me to distract you. Sometimes we don't always want to commiserate about our bad times. We want something good to be going on in our lives. A brother in the community just lost his father, and I wanted to hurry up and get off the phone with him, and he was like, no, like, I want to talk to you. I want to be helping with this project that you're doing because it gives me something to do. And so, alhamdulillah, I think that this thing is going to drive us together if we let it drive us together. It'll drive us crazy if we let it drive us crazy. So, Bidney Live said some things that'll be impactful and meaningful and that you can use and take to heart. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and bless us and grant Jannatul Firdaus to any one of us who have passed away during this time and the time to come before it and the time to come after it. Bidnillah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Quick note, just I want to say this. We know that the virus might be dying down as the summer months go on. They say that the sunlight exposure kills the virus or makes it less active. But to remember that people are starting to predict that the virus might come back in the fall. So be mindful, be thoughtful of that. I've started to prepare with my family. I've talked to my brother about it, my wife about it. I'm going to be talking to more people. This is something obviously that happened with the Spanish flu. From what I understood, I listened today that someone said it killed about 1 million people the first go round, and then the summer came, and then people got back to their regular lives, and then it came back and it killed millions more because people were not expecting it to come back and hadn't done the necessary precautions. And so I want us to be mindful of that even if we make it through this summer, fighting this virus, that it might return to us in the fall months. So again, may Allah protect us. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.